Hello and welcome. So you've spent decades saving diligently for retirement, and you might be thinking, okay, the hard part is over. But what if I told you the biggest risks in retirement often have nothing to do with money? They're the unexpected challenges that can really throw a wrench in what should be the best years of your life. In this explainer, we're going to break down 8 of the most common retirement mistakes and, more importantly, talk about how you can steer clear of them.
So let's just ask the question right out of the gate. You've done the hard work, you've built that nest egg, but are you really truly prepared for what comes next? Because this isn't just about the numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about those hidden dangers, the psychological traps, and lifestyle changes that catch so many people completely off guard.
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll talk about your most valuable years and why time is your most important asset now. Then we'll get into what it means to retire to a full life, not just from a job. We're also going to cover mindsets, social connections, and finding a new passion. And finally, we'll pull it all together with the one foundational piece that makes everything else possible.
Okay, let's dive into our first section. This one focuses on the one thing you can never, ever get back: time. In retirement, especially right at the beginning, time is so much more valuable than money, and what you do with it is absolutely critical.
Now, you might hear financial planners talk about this idea of the go-go years. And what they mean is that first 10 to 15-year window of retirement. This is the sweet spot. It's when you're usually at your healthiest, you've got the most energy, and you're really able to do all those things you've been dreaming about. You know, the big trips, the hobbies, checking things off the bucket list. This is your prime time.
And that brings us right to the first huge mistake people make. They fall into the one more year trap. Oh, it's so tempting, isn't it? Just work a little bit longer, pad the accounts a little more. It seems so harmless. But that one more year so easily turns into 2, and then 3, and before you know it, you've traded away the best, most active years of your retirement.
And don't just take my word for it. The evidence here is it's overwhelming. When you ask people who worked deep into their 70s and 80s if they're glad they did, 99%, literally 99%, give the exact same answer: I wish I retired earlier. They realize, way too late, that they gave away their precious go-go years for money they might not have even needed.
Now, the second mistake is kind of the opposite problem. It's not about working too long, it's being too scared to actually spend the money you've worked so hard to save, especially in those first few years. People they clutch their money a little too tightly.
And you know, the challenge here is this massive psychological shift you have to make. Your entire career, your mindset was save, save, save. Watching your account balances go up, that felt like winning. But suddenly, in retirement, the script flips. You have to start spending that money, what the pros call decumulation. And watching those balances go down can feel totally wrong, even a little scary. And that fear causes so many retirees to underspend, basically wasting their go-go years because they're terrified of running out of money.
So, this leads us perfectly into our second section, because a truly successful retirement, it isn't just about having enough money in the bank. It's about having a full life. What you do with all this new free time, well, that's everything. And this brings us right to mistake number 3, retiring to nothing. It is so easy to focus on what you're retiring from, right? The job, the commute, the stress, good riddance. But the real secret to a happy retirement is retiring to something. What are your hobbies? What are your goals? What's actually going to get you excited to get out of bed in the morning? You really have to start building those things up years before you hang it up for good. This is tied directly to mistake number 4, and it's a big one: neglecting your health. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have your health, it is completely meaningless. You know, once we hit our 40s and 50s, we have to start being proactive. There's a story of 2 people in a similar boat. One of them retired to a life on the couch, just watching TV, and his health went downhill fast. The other retired to a farm, had hobbies, was always moving around, and he thrived. The message couldn't be clearer. You've got to move your body, see your doctor, and keep that brain active.
Okay, next up, let's talk about mindset and social well-being. Because how you think and who you connect with are every bit as important as your physical health or your financial portfolio.
So, mistake number 5 is letting those social connections wither away. For so many of us, our job is our main social hub. It's where we interact with people every day. And when that just disappears, it can leave a huge void. You can't just become a hermit. Having active conversations, a real dialogue with people, that keeps your brain healthy and sharp. So you've got to be intentional about finding new ways to connect, whether it's joining a club, pursuing a hobby, or maybe doing some volunteer work.
Next is mistake number 6, making big emotional decisions without a financial filter. For example, you might get this emotional pull to buy that dream car, and you think, hey, it's my last chance. But you've got to pause and run that feeling through a financial filter. Okay, but can I actually afford this within my plan? There's another great example of a woman who tried to time the market. Sure, she made a few $1,000s, but she admitted the stress from it all probably took a couple years off my life. The takeaway is this: it's totally fine to make emotional choices, but you have to layer them with a dose of financial reality first.
All right, this next section is all about filling that void that a long career can leave behind. It's about finding a new sense of purpose, something that really drives you forward every day. And that leads us straight into mistake number 7, not pursuing a passion. You see, for a lot of people, their career was their passion. It gave them a sense of purpose, a real identity. And when you retire, that bucket can feel completely empty. You have to find a way to fill it back up again.
So how in the world do you do that? Well, if you're not even sure what you're passionate about, just ask your spouse or your close friends. Trust me, they'll know. Maybe you can keep your career passion going in a new, low-stress way, like an accountant who volunteers for a nonprofit. Or maybe you can turn a hobby, like golf, into a new purpose by giving a few lessons. See how this works? Pursuing a passion connects everything we've talked about. It keeps you healthy, it keeps you socially connected, and it gives you that all-important thing to retire to.
We've made it to our final section. And honestly, this is the most important one. This is where we tie it all together with the one thing that can help you avoid all 7 of the mistakes we've just talked about.
The 8th, and frankly, the biggest mistake that can absolutely ruin a retirement is not having a plan. And this analogy is just perfect. Retiring without a plan, it's like trying to go on a vacation to Mexico by just showing up at the airport with no tickets, no hotel booked, and just hoping for the best. It's a complete recipe for disaster. Now here is a fascinating way to think about it. Retirement is about 90% psychological and only about 10% financial. But, and this is a really big but, that 10% financial piece is the solid foundation for everything else. Without it, the other 90% is just built on sand, and it's probably going to collapse. Look, a good retirement plan isn't some vague, dusty document. It gives you real answers to your biggest, most critical questions. It tells you exactly how much you can safely spend each year, which solves that fear of spending we talked about earlier. It lays out where your income is going to come from, how you can minimize your taxes, when you should take government benefits, and how to manage all those different accounts you have. So, to put it as simply as I can, your financial plan is your foundation. It's the thing that gives you the confidence, the freedom to really live your go-go years to the fullest, to go after your passions, and to enjoy every single day without that constant worry nagging at the back of your mind.
And that leaves us with one final question for you to think about. It doesn't matter if you're 5 years from retirement or if you're already in it. What is one small, concrete step you can take this week to either create or just review your retirement plan?
If you found this video helpful, please do me a favor and like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Retirement Finance Explained. We're all about simple, clear guidance on retirement, savings, and your financial security. Thanks so much for joining me.